writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of science fiction, mystery, God knows what else. And with me today is my co-host,
Kathleen Kayembe, writer of magic, mystery, mayhem, and malarkey.
Malarkey.
I like
wow.
I like it.
I like it.
Fedora Amos, president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime, and author of Victorian Whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis.
I'm Melanie Kulani. I'm writer of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
in Real Science.
Yeah.
Real science.
Brad R. Cook. I am the author of a steampunk novel, Iron Horseman, coming out next month. Sweet, yay.
Yay.
I also am co-publisher at Blank Slate Press and president of St. Louis Writers Guild.
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a fantasy author and illustrator.
And I'm T.W. Finley. My book, Labyrinth of Time, is coming out in November as well.
Yay!
Is November a big month for books to come out?
I think it is.
This year, yes.
Right.
Huge this year.
Yeah.
It's a big month for books in general because NaNoWriMo is November.
That's right.
Yes.
That and the Christmas season starting, or the holiday season
That
starting.
might
up.
be the strategic reason why
Yeah.
books are popular in November.
That wasn't the reason mine, but I was totally happy about that.
Worked out.
However, today is not about why books are popular in November.
No.
Though we could discuss that in another
Apparently we
topic.
covered it already, though.
Today it
That
is...
was the episode on Books in November.
Thanks for tuning in
Yeah.
on November Books at RightPackRadio.com.
But
If
how
I
do
had
books-
control, I'd say I would have lost it, but I never had control in the first place. So no.
How do books get to the publishing point in November, though?
Yeah, actually, we're going to talk about a piece of
Really
that.
slow.
We're going to talk about it's the wind up and the pitch going across the plate, home run. We are going to talk about pitching to magazines for short stories, pitching to publishers, books, magazines, novellas, pitching to agents, the same things, and the scariness of such. And with that, why bother pitching? I mean, there is a whole revamped industry called self-publishing. Why not just go down that road? Why do I want to pitch? And do you ever pitch your own self-published novels?
A question. First, would someone please define pitching for any listener out there that doesn't know what it is?
And whether queries count.
And queries are a pitch.
Queries are their own topic. Queries are
I
a
think so,
letter
too.
you
Okay,
send.
we
We're
need
talking
to...
just about doing it in person, correct?
Yes.
in person, or
Okay.
like we're gonna include like Twitter pitches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Which I have no idea what that is.
actually,
Let's back up here.
Actually, back it up. My goal on this talk was to talk about the query as well as the pitch.
Okay,
We can talk about part of that because
Yeah.
they're very similar. You
Right.
should use your query in your pitch.
That's
Okay,
why.
could
and
you-
because magazines you don't usually pitch face to face. You can, but it's much more rare.
I don't know anything about pitching to magazines. What do
Hey.
you do when you go to pitch to magazines?
Before he explains that, would someone please define pitching?
Thank you, Melanie.
So it's
Why the
basically
pitch?
how you present your book to somebody, to an agent, to a publisher. And usually you're trying to get it as succinctly as possible. Often you only have, either you're in the elevator trying to pitch your book to somebody, or you're trying to describe it in a setting where you might only have 5 minutes, so it becomes difficult.
Yes.
So it's like the elevator pitch for job seeking, but for your story.
Correct.
Correct.
And you never want to do it in the bathroom. Usually that agent or publisher is busy with other.
Yes, we should definitely
needful
talk about the
things.
etiquette of where to pitch,
Yeah,
when
so-
to pitch.
And how to start, how to get going
Okay, well,
on this
first,
whole
we'll
project.
start with the don'ts. Please don't go up to them when they're checking in at the hotel. Don't go up to them when they're trying to go to the bathroom or trying to stuff food in their mouth or anything like that. Seek them out when they're expecting it, when they're sitting at the bar, buy them a drink, when they're in their actual pitching session. Maybe at lunch when they're not stuffing their face, like before the food comes.
I might make a point that, introduce yourself as an author. Say
Yes.
hello and thank you for coming. And if they ask you, tell me about your book, then you pitch.
That's a really
Amen.
good point.
Yes.
Amen.
Don't say,
Okay.
hey, the salad's really good today. You want to hear about my book?
So those are the don'ts. Let's go to the do's.
Do's.
The
Dudes.
do's.
Number one, keep your pitch short. Even if, as I think Kathleen said a moment ago, you you have a 5-minute pitch or a 5-minute pitch session. Or, okay, sorry,
Teresa
TW.
said that.
I wasn't sure which one. They came from that direction on the table.
We're sitting next to each other.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, you want time for that agent or publisher to be able to ask you questions. Keep it short.
Well, even before that point, I think that you have to do your homework before you get there.
Amen.
You are going to know the name of the editor or agent that you are pitching to. Find out about them. Find out what they're looking for. Find out their standards, and you can do that pretty easily from their websites in most cases.
And if you're
do your research.
And if you're in a conference situation, their bio's probably written directly there in your pamphlet book.
Exactly. Couldn't be easier.
Which is right where I'm going to go with the face-to-face pitching. Where can this be done? Well, you might get lucky if you hit the streets of New York running into them. Most likely it's going to be done at
That's
some
probably
kind of
a
writer's
bad time to
conference.
pitch, too.
I would totally agree. Go to a
Don't run
writer's
after them
conference.
on the street.
Writers' conference.
Yeah, so writers' conferences are wonderful things. There are all kinds of writers' conferences. From the regional conferences like Missouri Writers Guild, they put one on every year. They invite agents and editors and people like that. But there's a plethora of others. Some of my favorites are like Writers Digest because they have the Pitch Fest. For those of you who don't know, Pitch Fest is quite famous. They take literally a ton of agents, shove them in a room, and then put a ton of writers in that room. And you have literally just a couple of minutes to get your point across, and then you move on to the next agent. You're probably only going to get to a few. When I did it, I actually only got to 6 out of the 55 that were there. And there were about 700 authors in the room. So it was crazy. But it was a lot of fun, and it taught me a lot about pitching. It really taught me to refine that down to the perfect little just couple of sentences that sell not only the book, but the fact that you know what you're doing and the fact that you're professional about it. Yeah, that's the fun stuff. But there are other places to go as well. Any of the national conferences, the big guys, they'll all have agents at them. And then,
Okay,
there are other ways.
I'm going to put a plug out there for PNWA.
Yeah,
Pacific
another good one.
Northwest Writers Association Conference. Also a huge number of agents and editors.
SCBWI,
SCB.
RT, RWA.
And where can you go for a lot of these?
If you want
Shaw
Shaw
Guides.
Guides, yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. Shaw Guides lists all kinds of conferences online.
Yeah, volunteering to be the novice questioner in this, I'm going to just tell you I'm going to ask a lot of questions that I think I know the answer to, but I might be surprised.
I might not. It's okay.
Okay. Oh, you might not be surprised. Okay.
No, I'm not with the answers.
Okay.
Living.
Okay, so
So anyway, my first one of those questions is, okay, I'm going to a conference. There's a bunch of agents, and like you said, I don't have time to talk to them all. How do I choose which of the 50 agents I want to talk to?
number 1, do what Fedora told you. Do your research.
Yes.
Spend some time studying who's going to be there. The websites for these conferences usually have the bios up. They'll tell you what you want. Some conferences, like Missouri Writers Guild, will do a interview with the possible agent that you are looking at, and you can learn a lot from that information.
On a lot of the conferences I've been to, you actually have to select beforehand. So
Yes.
you go through that process that David was just talking about. You do the research and figure out what you have that matches what they want.
So that's
And-
what you would recommend. You would
Yes.
look for what they want specifically and try and match them.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is go in and try to pitch to somebody who doesn't even want what you have available.
It's a
very
waste of
true.
everyone's
It
time.
is, and they get angry.
And in situations like this pitch mad sort of thing, sometimes the person you pitch to is the one who has the shortest line
Yes.
because people are stacking up, and you can just pitch
No,
to anyone
pitch
you
to-
can.
it's the same thing, though. Pitching to anyone you can is not necessarily a waste of a pitch, because I never believe in that. Practice pitching is always a wonderful thing, because the next time you pitch, you'll be better at it.
And it's
Especially
like
if you
before
can get
jump
some
on.
feedback
Yeah, exactly.
from the person that you pitched to.
That's rare, but yeah, I try and give some out.
Real quick before you move on, because I'm going to let you go with it. Brad talked about practice pitching. If you're at a writers' conference, you're surrounded by writers. Who do you think you can practice pitch to on a constant basis? Because a lot of people always walk up to you and go, so what are you working on? What's your story? Use it. That's where you can get some good feedback. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I don't remember what I was talking about.
I'm evil that way.
But yeah, so pitching is, I
Who
don't
to pitch
know.
to? Shortest line, not wasting.
Yeah.
feedback.
So the point is that pick the people you want to pitch to. There's a reason you're pitching to them. And the reason is that you want to be a face with a book. When you query somebody, when you query an agent, when you query a publisher or anything like that, it's impersonal. It's a piece of paper that goes with a book. It's names and everything else. But face-to-face, that's different. You can get interactions with the agent. You can talk to them about it. They're going to ask you questions about it, and that's the best thing. You're now engaged with them talking about your book. You couldn't do anything better.
And you know that they're hearing about your book, not their assistant reading about your book.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because when you send a query letter, which is like a written pitch, when you send a query letter in, you are you're at the mercy of whoever is in the slush pile looking through, which might be a 15-year-old intern.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
I have no idea where these 15-year-olds find the internships, because it's hard enough for college students to find them,
Well, most of the time they're relatives.
Yeah.
It can be any number of things. They can be college kids. It doesn't matter. But, to get past the interns, to get past the assistants, to get past, any kind of other people, pitching can be a wonderful way of doing that. Because you're right there. You're with the agent. The agent's right there in front of you. And to be honest, you should also be assessing that agent or that publisher. Is this somebody I want to work with? Is this somebody I want to be dealing with? So ask them some questions. Or see what they're like. Try and gauge their personality and things like that. Because, to be honest, in this business, an agent or a publisher, these are your new best friends. So you want to make certain that you guys get along.
Exactly.
I have a question about research. Fedora, you had mentioned do your research on the agents and the publishers and whoever you're pitching to. What about the research for perfecting the pitch itself? How do you go about doing that? Where do you look for sources?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the place that you have to start, your first line is going to be your high concept. What they call in Hollywood taking two different motion pictures or books or famous this, that, or the other and sticking them together. My book is Mary Poppins meets Doc Savage, for example. Right? Okay,
I want
there
it.
you go.
Can I
High concept. And if you can't think of a high concept, I say go with heat. Passion. Whatever is the thing that says to you, I love this book, and you're going to love it too. That's what you start with. That's the very first thing you do.
Well, that explains what should be in your pitch, but where do you find the information, the outlines? I mean, websites?
Oh, what else should be in it?
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, well, real quick here, I'll throw it out. Dave and I have mentioned the Writer's Lens. Teresa's a big part of that as well. So on there, you will find the mechanics of the perfect pitch, which outlines a bunch of different ways, tips and everything else on how to get your pitch honed and perfected. I would also suggest that if you're anywhere near the St. Louis area, you check us out in March, because St. Louis Writers Guild for the last couple of years has run the mechanics of the perfect pitch, or sit down and pitch, as a workshop to get ready for the Missouri Writers Guild Conference.
and if you're members of the Writers Guild, that workshop is free. It costs $5 if you're not a member.
Thank you. One thing you want to do with your pitch is to write it down, keeping in mind exactly what Fedora said. You want high concept to go off first. You want to talk about what your genre is, so forth. Keep it short, write it out. Then you edit it, cutting it down even more, and cut down even more, and cut it down even more.
All right. Now, the other big thing I'm going to throw you is the people who taught me. So I highly recommend 3 people. First off is Chuck Sambucino. He's part of Writer's Digest, and he actually has a much better version of the perfect pitch than I have. So go check his out as well. And then Jane Friedman also has some good stuff out there that she's written about it. And I highly recommend checking out New Leaf Literary's Tumblr blog. They often talk about pitching and all that kind of fun stuff. And they've got some really great blog posts out there about it.
Not to mention they do a great Q&A every so often where they answer asks from their inbox.
Exactly.
Perfect. Got a question for everybody now. Is pitching only able to be done face-to-face? Now, we did talk about query letter, of course. That's not face-to-face. That's something you've sent nowadays by email. And you've done it in such a way that they're not going to have to click on something to open it up because all these agents are very afraid of viruses.
Yeah, no attachments unless they
No attachments unless they ask for it. That's a hint to everybody.
Put it in the body.
What are some other ways of pitching?
Well, I'll pass this off to Jen in a second, but I'm going to bring it up. So Twitter is the newest place to pitch, and don't just jump on Twitter and start pitching. That's not the way it works.
No.
That would be horrifically scary and kind of funny. But anyway, there is this wonderful thing that kind of happens on Twitter every so often. It goes by different names, but I think now it's is it Pitch Madness or
I think it's Pitch Mad.
Pitch Mad
They
is-
shorten
is
it
the
so
big
it's
thing.
a good, it's
it's a nice
decent
hashtag. But Pitch Mad is the hashtag. But basically, there's a blog that's run by I think it's Brenda Blake or
I wish I could tell you.
I think that's it. But
We'd
anyway,
have to Google it.
she's got this blog. It's an amazing thing, and basically what happens is that there's a couple of different ways. There's a whole process you can go through where people help mentor you, and you can get into an earlier thing where your pitches are only being seen by certain agents and stuff like that. But then they open it up on one day, and everybody just goes crazy on Tumblr or on Twitter. And all the agents kind of check in, and they will favorite your tweet if they like it, or they will retweet you, or just tell you, hey, if I favorited, send me, the next 5 pages or something like that. And you craft the perfect pitch in 140 characters, and you have to put PitMat on it. So you're getting even
So
less.
it's really about 120 characters.
Yeah, it's less than that. But anyway, the point is to streamline it into literally that perfect little one sentence that you can say that makes it, put it out there and people will get excited about it. And then other writers will retweet the ones they like, try and keep them up there. And don't do it every 5 minutes, maybe do it once an hour, twice an hour, or something like that. And then, check out your favorites. But look, it happens every couple of months at least on Twitter. And it's been super successful, actually. So some agents people have gotten deals this way.
Yeah. I'll just say that I am terrible at Twitter pitching. Absolutely awful. I've never had any returns from it. I've seen other people get favorites, which is very nice.
Yes.
It's very frightening, but it gives you also a good idea of what everyone else is writing. So
Yes.
if
You can see
who you're up
trends.
against, really.
Yeah, you'll
If
start
you're-
spotting trends, too.
If
It's
you're
fun.
writing a paranormal romance about mummies, which I'm still waiting for the sexy mummy book, let me just tell you. If you're writing a paranormal romance about mummies and you look and it's PitMad time and you follow the hashtag and you notice that everyone's writing about sexy mummies, maybe you should put your mummy book away for a little while. Or spontaneously turn him into a were-tortoise.
No.
I have news for you, Jen.
Unwrapping
You're
Mr.
technically
Right.
you're erotic, not completely erotic.
I was not looking
You're
for
pa-
erotica, thank
Jen,
you.
you're paranormal mummy.
I don't want to
romance.
know what it's like when you take,
No, I don't
take
either.
their bandages off,
Paranormal
okay?
romance.
Unwrap
Mummy
the-
was
and then
written
just
by
fill in the
Anne
blank.
Rice, known as Ramses the Damned, which is my favorite book by her, by the way. But anyway,
Well, it's time for it to come back.
time for her to come back. Okay,
God.
so
Okay, but what about the
bandages.
were-tortoise?
Were-tortoise forever.
Actually, there
is
is
this look information?
there is an episode of Grimm that involves someone who's kind of a were-tortoise. It's really, really
Okay.
good.
Okay,
coming
back to
through.
pitching.
Back to
sorry
pitching
about
now.
And now we got pitchforks. Go ahead.
Pitchforks.
Ah.
But I would end all this madness by giving you a couple of pretty darn good first lines.
Okay.
These weren't written by me, but by Shirley Kennett, who has published any number of books as Dakota something or other.
She's prepared except for the
Oh,
name.
Dakota Banks?
Dakota Banks, there we go.
Oh,
and
I love
also
her.
as
I love her
Shirley,
writing.
as Shirley
Love her
Kennett. So
stories.
she has
Yeah.
a lot of books out. Well, this is one that she wrote that I think is pretty darn good. A woman posts an innocent family video online, but the next time she views it, it's been turned into a snuff film showing each member of her family horribly slain.
Really?
Then it starts to happen in real life.
My face is contorted in like horror.
And I'm over
It's
here.
supposed to be.
I'm unfortunately over here playing Semantics Girl. Because it's not a snuff film unless it's actual murder.
Exactly.
Well, that's the point. It's a
Well,
horror.
but it hasn't been
It's a
turned into
horror
a
film.
snuff film until they actually die. Then it's a snuff film.
Well,
it will
no, she
become a snuff
sees
film
it.
actually after
She
they're
sees
dead.
it, and then it happens.
Yeah.
She sees the film, then it happens.
like a preview to
It's a
the.
horror movie that eventually becomes
It's a horror
stuff.
movie. Anything can
I
happen in a horror
am
movie.
so sorry.
It's okay. I like that you brought up semantics, girl.
I looked you in the eye.
Do you have
when I
any
said
more?
Yes, you did.
Oh, yeah, I have a couple more for
Yes, go for it.
Let me see. What does she say? The stakes are high when a man discovers that a secret organization plans a series of disasters to set the stage for the end of things this very year.
Sounds like a book that came out in 2012.
Yeah,
Or
it
2000.
did.
It's not bad, but I like the first one better.
Yeah.
I'd probably
Yeah.
say yes
I
to the
thought
first
so,
one
too.
and maybe to that one.
Well, but the first
Oh,
one
the
gives you
publisher's
all
coming
sorts
out
of
of it.
pictures, you know? The second one is much more generic.
Read another one.
A forensics expert has just hours to unlock the secrets of a decade-old murder and untangle greed, incest, and evil
Okay.
to save the life of the woman he loves.
Okay.
Brad's interested in that one too.
Well, it's got good bells and
Yeah.
whistles. You're always looking for. I should say, on the other end, as an agent or a publisher, what they're looking for is generally, that special little something in a pitch or query. So try and put those kinds of things in there.
What kind of special things are you talking about?
Well, having not just saying that he was a forensics artist who was trying to find stuff out. Listing the different things that come up. That's intriguing. It sets off sort of it creates imagery in my head as to what's the possibilities of this book.
Do you think there are any magic words along those lines?
I don't
do you?
actually, and the reason I say that is because I've received a fair amount of pitching now, but not tons and tons. But to be honest, almost anything. And that's why I don't say there's a set list. I can't give you these are the 12 words you have to put in a pitch. But it's those buzzwords. It's the words that we all want to hear. It's things that tell me how it's exciting rather than just that it's exciting. Telling me a book's exciting is nice. Telling me how it's exciting is awesome.
Show, don't tell.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say the specificity in the first one was what really got me.
Yes,
'Cause
exactly.
They didn't have to mention stakes.
You
the
now
stakes
know
were
the
clear.
entire story from that one line.
Exactly.
You don't even need to read the whole book now. I mean, technically, the rest you're going to read it because it's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, but what you don't
But-
know is how it's going to be
Exactly.
fixed. That's
Well,
implied.
and you don't know
How do you
who's
fix it?
who's
Who's
behind
doing it?
this.
Yeah.
You don't know
All
anything
those
about
questions get stirred up. There's so much possibility out there.
And Fedora, you might be able to answer my question by just reading that one more time.
The
And we're gonna-
snuff film one?
Yeah, the snuff film one. And I'll tell the audience as well as
All
everybody
right.
sitting here what that question is after she reads it.
A woman posts an innocent family video online, but the next time she views it, it's been turned into a snuff film showing each member of her family horribly slain. Then it starts to happen in real life.
Okay, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not really hearing anything passive in that entire sentence, or that entire pitch.
No.
I think
Active
that's
is
also,
good.
yeah, and let's say that is one of the keys to the pitch, is keep it active.
Oh, yeah.
No by zombies. Zombies didn't do anything in that.
Well, would you explain that for someone that didn't listen to last week's episode?
A way to guard yourself against the passive voice. If you can stick the words "by zombies" at the end and the sentence still makes sense, your verb's in the wrong place, and you need to rearrange it to make it a more active sentence.
Yeah, and I just spent the last week editing. Mm-hmm. This was a scientific paper, but I spent the last week editing, and I've noticed that most of the time, putting in an active voice makes the sentence shorter. Also,
Yeah, so that's helpful for pitching too. If
Yeah.
we're going for
Yeah, you got to keep it short and sweet.
Another reason for keeping this short and sweet, let me just put the reality out there. Brad talked about it at the Writer's Digest pitch session he went to. If you go to a pitch session, unless you're very first person pitching to them, they've already heard a couple of pitches. Their eyes are glazed over worse than a glazed donut. You need to break through that glaze and get memorable for them to want your story. And by that, I don't mean don't be somebody who drops off a bottle of tequila in front of them, thinking that they're going to remember you because you gave them a bottle of tequila or a bag of nuts or anything else.
Unless your story is about tequila
or a
nuts.
bag of nuts.
Yeah.
No.
And then also,
Giving them
too,
stuff is a bad idea too.
right, if you can wake them up, mean that seriously, I mean, come on. You sit across... How many of you have ever sat in a college classroom of 300 some odd people and the professor is droning?
That can happen in a classroom of 30, by the way.
It can happen in a classroom of 30. I know. I'm trying to do the big numbers because that's what it feels like.
That feeling is the reason I never want to go back to school. I can still feel it in the back of my head, that tingle, when everything inside of you wants to be asleep, but you can't be.
Yes.
And you're just sitting there thinking of anything else to keep you awake until the hour's over.
But that's basically what these guys are going through. These agents and editors, publishers are going through as they're sitting there, especially at a big conference. And a big conference can be the regionals, and it can be the much larger ones, where they are stuck for literally almost 8 to 10 hours of listening to people pitch. And each person about 5 minutes, give or take.
So what I'm hearing then is don't be boring.
Don't be boring. And that should apply to your query letter as well. Don't be boring.
But don't be outrageous.
Yes, amen.
Don't be jumping up and down, flashing your arms, going, "Wake up! Yeah!"
Don't be Tom
waking
Cruise
up-
jumping
Here's
on
my
Oprah's
book.
couch.
No, that would be scary.
Don't jump on Oprah's couch.
Yeah.
No.
Waking them up is not sitting across from them and going, boo!
No.
Waking me up is telling me something really awesome that I want to publish.
And really do go back and do your research on them before you sit down with them.
Another note on live pitching. It's terrifying. It will be terrifying to go into a live pitch session.
Yes.
But having done a couple myself, once you get over the nerves that this person has your future in their hands, I actually found them a lot of fun. Because you have to remember that agents and publishers and editors are human beings.
We're people too.
And you want to sit down and you're going to have a conversation and they're going to listen to you talk about your book. What's more fun than that? Talking about your book for a couple minutes.
And these are book people. They love talking
So
about
be
books.
relaxed, be human, because they're going to remember the humans fondly. Don't be a weird person who's reading from a script that you keep in your lap, because they aren't going to remember the person who stares at their own crotch the whole time.
I'm not going to get
So it's
Not
not a good way.
fondly,
Not
anyway.
I'm not going to remember the exact quote, but a literary agent I was listening to said something along the lines of, this is a business relationship, so be a person that the agent wants to do business with.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, too, something to realize about when you pitch, don't put your book in front of them. You may put a sample, but don't put your entire book in front of them and say, here's my book and this is what it's about. And most certainly, don't expect them to take your book or CD
Do
of
not
your book.
bring it.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
you mail it if they want you to, or email it or whatever.
Right.
But they got luggage. They don't want to take a ton of stuff home with
Exactly.
them on
Not
the
to
plane.
mention they might be taking home a ton of books anyway, and they
Right.
bought.
I would say that it's wise, you can bring it with you if you want to, but to keep it handy in case they want to see a sample
And
of your
hidden.
voice.
Right.
Yes,
So,
bring your first chapter. Or
Yeah,
something
bring your
like
first
that.
chapter. If they're doing the Missouri Writers Guilds has a slush pile reading. So if you have a copy of what you submitted to the slush pile, the first 4 pages or whatever, that's a good idea just to bring with them in
Just
case
don't
that's
pull
going
it
to
out
help.
unless they ask for it.
Right.
Yeah. Often
Or
if they're
your query
interested in your
even.
pitch, they'll ask, "And do you have a sample?" And you say, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do. Here you go." That happened to me once in a pitch. It was really nice to be able to be like, "Yeah, I'm so glad you're interested. Have a look." And of course, the agent handed it right back to me when they were done because they just wanted to taste. They didn't want to take it long.
So, what do you say when someone says, I'm a writer? I write things. I write queries. I don't pitch verbally. How do you bridge that gap between
Well, you
I
pat them on the
express
back of
myself
their
best
hand.
writing?
And you tell them that they're going to have to get over it.
So how do you get over it?
Well, I'm not sure
Practice.
you do have to get
That's
over
a
it,
wonderful
really.
question. Practice, 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 practice.
How?
Tell everybody. Tell your mom. Tell your dog. Dogs are wonderful. Cats too. The cats not always.
Talk to
No.
the mirror.
Talk to the mirror. A mirror's a good one too. But practice your pitch. It's only a couple of minutes long, so if you can memorize it.
most of
Videotape
it-
yourself.
Now, I'm
You
being
know?
sarcastic.
That can be scary, but yeah.
Well,
If
just for
need
you.
to.
I'm going to be sarcastic for a second, and I'm telling the audience that because I don't want you guys thinking I'm actually saying this question meaning it.
I'm offended.
You mean somebody's not going to steal my story if I pitch it
No,
to them as a writer to another writer?
that'd be really hard.
Only
Because
if they're
no two
psychic.
people write the same book. So even if they, as I always like saying, I can go out and write sparkly vampires too. and it's going to be completely different. But I'm not going to.
Thank you.
If I wrote sparkly vampires, it's because their skeleton is silver and their eyes are made of emerald.
I want you to write that.
I did.
This seems very similar to the I've got this great idea. You write the book and we will
Oh,
split
God.
them.
Split it 50-50.
Is another writer going to steal my story, my pitch? Well, 50-50 split. You got the idea.
And here's the other thing on that. Good luck, because by the time you write it and then get to the point where you can pitch it, that's their book's already been running around the entire thing, so everyone already knows about it.
Right.
Stealing ideas is a bad idea because you've stolen the idea. The idea was already had by someone else.
The theft
and they're
is the
finished
problem.
with that idea, and you're just starting out with that idea.
So you're already behind.
I don't want to discourage anyone who is completely unable to speak to other people either.
Right.
I've done a number of pitches. None of them did me any good whatsoever, other than the fact that it helped me to refine some of the things that needed refining for a written query.
Right.
And truthfully, everything that I've had published was written or somebody asked me to write it.
True?
Well, I had kind of the opposite experience. I've sent out a lot of written queries, but my book was picked up because I had a face-to-face sit-down thing at a conference with a publisher, and that was the only way that it worked for me. And I think it just depends. Being in the right place at the right time with the right person, it's all about that. It always is.
And that's always a crap.
It is, isn't it? So, but I think it can work even for people like me. I hate this whole process. I mean, I hate trying to boil things down into one line. I mean, you worked for years trying to get the whole book done, and now you're trying to get it down into one line. How crazy is that?
It is the craziest
Let's
thing
go
ever,
there.
yes.
And even the query letter. I mean, it's so hard to do, and so hard to do it well. And it's a special talent. It's almost like a special power or a special skill, that not everybody does as well at it. So I think a lot of it's just the luck of the draw. But you got to put yourself in the place in order to have the luck happen. You can't just wish for it.
You got to show up.
Yeah.
This may sound crazy, and I wish, and in a way, I'm sorry that this current generation is living in the time that they are, because they missed probably the greatest, in my opinion anyway, presentation book on how to pitch. TV Guide. And if you're cracking up at home, perfect. If you're cracking up at home, honestly, what TV Guide used to do, and in a way, you can see this in the cable with a little brief description of a television show. That's what TV Guide was. It literally gave you an entire television show in a sentence or two, so you knew what you were going to look at. It was a perfect example.
And sometimes hilariously.
Oh, incorrect.
My favorite one was actually correct, but anyone that read it thought, that can't be true. It was an episode of Star Trek, and it said where Spock goes into a wild mating frenzy and kills Kirk, which is technically exactly what happened in that episode.
Another thing to do, take a look at any book that's out there. I don't care. Just walk down your local bookstore, grab a book, and turn to the back. On the back is usually the pitch, or a part of the pitch that was actually used. Not always, but mostly. Also, too, there are query letters online that you can look at that were successful. One is by a friend of ours, Angie Fox, and it can be found at Bookends Literacy. Wrong. Bookends Lit Agency.blogspot.com. Now I'll let you just look for it from there because I'm not going to read the rest of the.
You can actually
URL.
just Google query letter Angie Fox,
Yeah.
and it'll pop up.
And maybe you could arrange to have this linked on the Facebook page.
Well, I could, but I don't normally because I'm usually doing this at last minute.
Facebook
Such a
pages tend to go.
procrastinating writer.
Yes.
I was going to say, if we're looking at pitching examples, like examples of what kind of structure and language to use then, TV Guide being one, IMDb or Netflix blurbs or the back of the book blurbs, movie poster taglines, just taglines for things. Those are amazing. Like Common Law.
They are very good examples.
Everything you just mentioned, all good.
Yes.
And,
Check them out, use them, abuse them, steal them.
There is also, I remember when Sarah Rees
Don't
Brennan, author,
Borrow.
got her first book picked up by an agent. Her agent used her query letter as an example of what to do. And in a blog post broke down, like, poster a query letter and went sentence by sentence why these things grabbed her, why these things were successful, what made her keep going.
But
Which
if
is,
she had
happens a little bit in the Angie Fox one he just mentioned.
Okay.
But if the agent hadn't been looking for a book that was similar to that, it still wouldn't have done any good.
It was tailored to the agent, but the
Yeah.
agent was saying, just in the language of the query letter, this is what grabbed me. This is what to do.
And for those out there who are, they're new authors, lack of a better way of saying this. Even if you've been writing for a long time, you just haven't gotten your first book published. If you think that, oh great, I can pitch once, I get a book done, and I'm good to go, and I don't ever have to pitch again, I'm sorry. Unless you're James Patterson, and I won't guarantee he doesn't have to pitch ever so often, or Stephen King and so forth. A lot of well-known authors still have to repitch stories, or especially if they go down to brand new.
Actually, you're hitting right on it. So when you get your awesome book deal and you're up with your awesome agent, that's great. You're going to get that book deal. It's going to be fun. But the next book you write, you're going to have to write up the whole sample. You're going to have to write up the whole pitch and everything. Send it to your agent. The two of you are going to work on that pitch, and then the agent's going to take it and pitch it to all the publishers and everything like that. So this process never ends. It just keeps refining in different ways.
Also, too, if you are a self-published author, and you're thinking, oh, I don't have to worry about pitching at all, not me, you got to put something on the back of your book, and you've got to put something on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or both, and so forth. That's still a pitch, everybody.
Technically, it's the same when you're selling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no matter who you are or how you got your book out, you're going to have to sell it to people.
Exactly.
Whether it's readers, whether it's blog owners who are going to write a review about it, whether it's on Goodreads, you're trying to get people interested in adding it to their list, whether it's to the guy next to you who says, oh, so you're an author, you're going to have to sell your book to somebody. So it's good to have this pre-written pitch, query, example in your brain already. You might as well.
Well, I know one of the things that I've seen two different points of view on is whether you should pitch if your book isn't finished. And I know for the longest time, it was like, definitely don't. Your book has to be completely finished. But, I've been seeing other things like, well, you can kind of do intro to an agent or a publisher and spend some time with them that it's really your time that you have. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out to see what other people thought about that concept, that it was really just your time with an agent or publisher.
Well, as somebody who's taken pitches, I don't care. So if you ever see me anywhere at a conference or anything like that, if it's not finished, you can totally talk to me. However, it is a two-sided thing. Some agents hate it, and other agents don't mind. The point is that no matter what you do, you have a limited time. So first off, you have to tell them that it's not done. Do not try and pitch me something that you're saying is finished, and then I'm going to ask you for it, and you say, well, can you wait 6 months? Not really. Yeah. The other thing is, so definitely tell me that, it's not done. But more importantly than that, you only have a few months after that to where you're going to be in my brain, and I'm going to remember you, and most agents are probably going to be the same way. They might even have a shorter time window than I do, or a longer one. Who knows? But the point is that your name and your face are going along with this book, and you're trying to capitalize on that. So what you really want to have is the agent that you're talking to at this conference who says, "This sounds awesome. Send it to me right now. I'm going to read it tonight." And they go up into their hotel room and they read it that night. That's a great way. Or maybe they read it that next week and get back to you. The point is that you really want to capitalize on that moment. You can take more time afterwards, but like I said, if it's longer than a few months, that's not good.
Exactly. In a way, to use a Larry segue, if you pitch and the agent says, or the editor says, "Hey, I'm interested in that. Here's my email address." You've just been handed the proverbial special chocolate bar out of Willy Wonka, from Willy Wonka.
The golden
ticket.
You've got your golden ticket, thank you. Well, I thought that was a term, and in my mind I was like, no, I don't want to debate that in my head. You've got your golden ticket. And you better use it or you're going to lose it. And you have to redo everything again.
Run home, Charlie.
Run home and don't stop till you get there, because you're going to get mobbed by a bunch of grown men trying to grab the ticket out of your hand.
That's not what happened in the book. But
That's what happened in the movie.
Yeah.
I always thought that was really scary as a kid, was that all these people were like going to knock that kid over to get that ticket.
Anyway, go ahead, Fedora.
Well, I think there are three
Favorite movie.
keys to having a good pitch, and we've talked a lot about two of them. One is your story. It's got to be bold, it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be out there, it's got to be first. And we're talking, of course, about ourselves and making a good impression. A business-like impression so that your editor agent would want to deal with you in the future and for a long term, we hope. There's one more thing that most, I think, are going to want, and that is characters that they're going to be able to love, hate, identify with, at any rate, be special. And so you need to be prepared to talk about your protagonist, your villains, and make them amazing so that there are no other characters out there really like them. They are different from everybody else and very special.
Couldn't agree more.
I agree. In fact, I know as a table here, we pick on Twilight quite a lot. And I'm not going to say it's not deserved, okay? But I am going to say, how often do we say sparkly vampire?
Memorable.
It's
say
very,
sparkly
very,
a lot.
very memorable. That's a good example of
It is
characters.
unexpected
It is unexpected.
because it is wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
And Kathleen for the thrust.
we'll also make the point that Twilight, as we pick on it, has sold more books than we could ever dream.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
There's
It's the
a
best.
big dose of jealousy
So
here.
there's a lot of envy going on, and we will all admit that we don't understand
Stephanie, we
why
love you.
Twilight, that we see all of these tropes and cliches in. Well, someone saw potential, and they were right. They accepted that book as a contract, and Stephanie has certainly benefited from it. She loves her world as much as we love our world, so
And we're all just True Blood fans.
truce.
Yeah. And I can't want to go ahead and go with something here that you would make me think about. You pitch your book, it gets rejected. Either at the pitch or it gets rejected later on. And I will say, I'm going to warn everybody ahead of time, there are some agents out there who really, they want you to pitch to them, but they don't want to reject you face to face, so they'll give you their email anyway and they reject you later.
There's a false golden ticket.
It's a false golden ticket. But it happens. But
it's a brass ticket.
lead to gold. Good job. Okay,
I
anyway.
like it.
But where I was going with this is a lot of books that have been very successful have gone through a lot of rejections.
Oh yeah.
And it may not fit that agent at that time. That agent may have not been able to see the potential into it. That agent may have been half sick at the time they listened to you. Just because you get rejected doesn't mean to quit. Go back and look at your pitch, just like you would go back and look at your novel, and rework it.
Yeah, every agent's got the one that got away, and they'll tell you about it because they know about it. But the other thing is that rejection, and it's a big thing to mention, and we've talked about this before, but rejection is never about you, and it's never about your book. It's about the fact that whatever stars are meant to align in terms of what someone's looking for at a house or a publishing house or even an agent, and what they're looking for, and you not matching it or any of the things along that. But it's never about the fact that, you're horrible or, you stink or something weird like that.
Rejection is about fit.
Yes,
Whether
exactly.
it fits with wherever it's being sent to. And I
You
was
just can't
thinking,
take it personally.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you said, David, about, or was it Brad? The one that got away, every agent has one of those?
Yeah,
Yes.
Brad said that term.
Brad said that. Okay. So, yeah, Madeline Lingle, Wrinkle in Time, 42 agent publisher people's
Look at J.K.
the one that got away.
Every single publishing house practically turned her down. And now they're all just kicking themselves in the butt for not having Harry Potter.
The first Dr. Seuss book was turned out, I think, something like 57 times.
Exactly.
Oh, it's even more than Wrinkle. Wow.
Yeah.
That was back in the day when you actually walked into the publisher with your manuscript in hand, and so he would walk up and say, "I have a children's book," and they're like, "That's nice, get out."
Oh.
So he walked through the door something like 57 times. I'm saying 57 because it sounds right in my head. I might be wrong. I don't know. But the point is that
A lot of times.
a lot of times, at least up in the upper, closer to past 100, like halfway to 100. So
Yeah.
that was a lot of words to get
Oh,
that
the
out.
places he
Well, and it happens
Goes
with. And
now.
by the way, a lot of times we're here
To
sitting
think that I
talking
saw it all
about
later straight.
books. Scripts also go through the same process.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
going
they
to
get rejected.
I was going to ask about that. I've heard of Hollywood pitch sessions where
Uh-huh.
you just try and
You pitch your book.
combine things
Pitch your
like
script.
50
Pitch your
different
script.
like this meets this,
Yes.
this meets this famous thing meets this famous
And
thing.
it's the Hollywood version that's bled down to the book version.
Okay.
You know what's kind of frustrating about the Hollywood version? You sell your script. You might even get paid lots of money. Then nothing ever happens to it.
That's also possible.
Well, that's because they're buying the
With
rights. They're
books,
optioning
too.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
can
happens
get
so
your
often that you'll
advance
sell your
and
rights. Yeah.
You get to keep that.
Yeah.
But if they never publish it, that's all there is.
Yep.
And it's much the same way, though, just in case you do have a script out there. There are movie production companies that you can send your script off to. There is a whole process for this, so I highly recommend you Google it and you learn about it and you join that process.
Is it different for script writing if you need to have the script written ahead of time when you're pitching or no?
Most of the time. Most of the time, everyone kind of wants it done because of two reasons. First off, a lot of things get started that don't get finished. So why buy something or why invest in something that isn't going to get finished because the author is going to drop it? So you want that finished product because you know that the author had the wherewithal to go through it till the end. And then the other thing is that generally you want it now. I'm looking for now. And when doesn't mean I might be looking for next year. I might be looking for there. But what I'm looking for at a conference, I generally know, and I'm looking for that there. I'm not looking for it 6 weeks from now, or something like that. I have it,
This
a window,
is
and I'm
America.
interested.
We want it now.
Exactly. It might not
Right.
come out for a year or so. But
Strike while the iron's hot.
yeah.
I have a few just kind of nitpicky things that will make it easier, I think, for a lot of people
Please.
to pitch. First, you're going to be nervous going in. A way to try to get rid of some of that is to grab onto the seat of your chair, hang onto it, and let some of your energy flow down your arm so that it doesn't come out in all kinds of quiggles in your body.
I like that.
Two.
I like that.
Two, don't wear lots of perfume and aftershave because they're going to be going squishing back as far as they possibly can from you. So simply don't do it.
And if I can-
one more. Oh, go ahead, Howard.
Actually, I love that you did that. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to let you take over back to it.
Okay.
Also, too, being somebody who suffers from breathing issues, if you wear a lot of perfume or a lot of aftershave, and the person is an asthmatic that you're going to pitch to, you will be remembered for the wrong reason. Oh, you're the one who made me go grab my inhaler or go to the hospital.
Another thing, if you have animals, make sure to be as dander-free as possible.
Very good, too.
Get rid of that cat.
Yeah, when you're not killing your agent,
Good
what other
point.
things can you do?
Okay.
And now for the number 3 from
Number
Fedora.
Number 3 is to look as though you want to be there and you want to talk to this person. A couple of ways to go about that. Don't cross your arms as
Like I'm
David is
doing
doing
right
right now because that's shutting them out.
Right.
Do keep your chin up to about their level and not tuck down so that you look as though you're ashamed to be there.
Don't stare at your crotch.
And lean just a trifle forward because that certainly looks as though you're interested in what the person is saying.
And
All good advice.
Very good, all very good advice. And in a lot of ways, if you think about it, it's a similar body positions to a first date
Or a job interview.
or a job interview.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Job
seriously.
interview more
Exactly right.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
This
they say
is very
getting an agent is
comparable
like
to
a
a job
marriage.
interview.
I want to marry you. Here is why you should marry me back. Pitch session.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Wow.
Please tell me
If we're going
about your
there.
book and not why I should publish your book.
Yes.
Because, to be honest, there are very personal reasons why I'm going to publish your book. It's pretty much simple. I really like it. Mm-hmm. That's why.
I think it's got legs.
I think other people are going to like this book. But what I really don't need is you going, this is the best book ever, and you're going to love it because.
Is this a hard
Or,
sell?
or worse,
Oh my
not
god.
I need
sell
to
it
really
all.
publish this
Yeah.
book because I'm on my last dime and I've spent my money to be here just to pitch to you.
Let me tell you my
No
sob
kidding.
story.
Yes.
Pity
It
doesn't.
has nothing to do with the
Tell
book.
me about the book, because
Yeah.
that's what I care about.
Only say the sob story if you've written a memoir.
If that's what the book's about, tell the sob story.
And
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're pitching a memoir and that's a sob story, go with it. If it's not a memoir, maybe not.
So what are some other things you don't want to do?
Oh, how would you handle, for example, let's say there are certain groups that are underrepresented in the publishing industry. So speaking of that, so let's say you have a book with a different point of view than the publisher, and you think this view is underrepresented. I'm just pulling out things, but you have a book based on your own background, your own ethnic background, or your own minority experience, whatever, that you know for sure, because you've done your research, is very different. How would you sell that saying this is an underrepresented market without saying this is why you should publish?
I wanted to bring up, it may be a touchy topic, I guess, but I wanted to bring up John Oliver. When John Oliver was on The Daily Show, he now has a show called Last Week Tonight on HBO. It's brilliant. He, every Sunday, gives a few news stories, but mostly it's more directed, full stories. It's not just, oh, this happened, zinger. So he covered Ferguson a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And what he did brilliantly was he made it applicable to everyone. You did not have to be a black person living in Ferguson, Missouri. You did not have to be a black person. You did not have to like police or hate police or anything else. He made it applicable to anyone in America who has any interaction or can have any interaction with police officers, period. And he did that by explaining why the police force in general, having the technology it does, the military grade technology, is a danger to people. He made it accessible to everyone. And he made it funny. I think you kind of need to do the same thing when it's a minority group. You need to make it accessible not just to people in that minority group.
So are you saying to do this in your pitch or in your
Yes.
work? In your pitch?
In your pitch.
In everything.
Because when it's actually in your work, chances are you're going to be doing that anyway. You're going to want characters that people can identify with and can love. So that's more taken care of. With the pitch, you need to explain why this is accessible to a wider audience.
To be honest, that's like gold. And here's, and I don't mean that literally as in everyone should run out and find their minority and write about it.
No, we will
what I-
hurt you. We will hurt you down.
Exactly.
And we
What
will
I-
tell you you did it wrong.
Exactly. So what I mean by that is that's something that stands out. That's something that sets your character apart from other characters out there. What's going to set your story differently than other stories out there. Being that kind of memorable is exactly what you want to be. So even if your character isn't a minority or doesn't fall, but they fall into a minority category of some kind, that's actually a wonderful thing to bring up. You take the example of How to Train Your Dragon, a great and wonderful tale. In of itself is amazing and beautiful. Yet there's this little layer that gets laid on. That it's all about, being handicapped and overcoming that and having all these adversities that you have to overcome and using prosthetics to do so and moving on. That is beautiful and makes the story rich and full and just amazing. And to be honest, what would sell that story to me, not necessarily over the dragons and the awesome Vikingness, would be that layer. So find that layer in your story and use it.
Jen, you were next.
Well, I was going to ask Kathleen a question.
Oh.
Since Kathleen writes
Romance.
LGBT fiction under a pen name, have you pitched a story with these themes before, and how did you go about it?
I have not been to a pitching session, no. I am new to those things. And the publisher I publish with is, they're looking specifically for LGBT stories. So for me, it was more a matter of what makes these characters distinct, what makes their story distinct.
And not stereotypes.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's true for a lot. Like, everybody wants to identify in some way with the story they're reading, to experience it in some way. And I think any good character is going to have some element of every man, I guess, and some element of unique that makes you feel like that character. Like with Hiccup, everyone has felt in How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
Sure, everyone has felt like an outcast or like they were just so different from everybody around them. And that is Hiccup. He is brilliant. He sees things in a visionary way that no one else really understands. And yet he's the one that nobody really sees as strong or sees as worthy in his culture. Everybody kind of feels like that sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
No, certainly.
And that's what makes it great. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay.
He's an underdog.
I'm just going to throw out a few tips that you can use in your when you pitch. And these are honed off of things that I've seen done myself or a ton of other things. So the first off, we kind of touched on these, is don't use up all your time. In fact, don't use up try and use less than half your time, because the real point is not that you selling your book, but it's the questions and answer session that you have with the agent or editor about your book, because that's where all the greatness is going to come in.
What happens in that section? Because we have talked about pitches, but what happens in the Q&A? What kind of stuff do people
actually,
ask?
that's the best part, especially for me when I'm sitting on. Actually, no matter what side I'm sitting on of the table, and the reason being is that I like that interaction. First off, an agent's going to ask questions that they are thinking about. So they're going to ask you questions about the character, or the story, or the plot, or the villains, or the what happens, and all that kind of stuff, which then allows you to go in deeper and talk about the cooler stuff of your book, more so than just the few things you could do in a pitch. And then if you're on the other side, for you, it's a chance to use all that stuff that because you only have this little area of your book that you're putting out, the main plot, the main character. But, what if you have some really cool thing, a cool minor character, a cool villain that you want to talk about? It's a great time to bring that up.
So if we were doing the film How to Train Your Dragon, what kind of questions would you get after the pitch then?
Well, I might talk to you about why you wrote it. I might talk to you about how you know about Vikings and dragons. We might talk, in fact, especially about all the different types of dragons. You might tell me that, you don't just have one kind of dragon. You've got all these various types of dragons that the kids have to learn about. That they go to school with them or something, Those are the kinds of things that you get into that won't be in your pitch. It might be a word or two, maybe just 2 words in your pitch. But now we get to talk about it. Now we get to spend like 2 minutes or a full minute having a conversation about it. It's amazing.
I think that's a good point, that probably 3 minutes would be prepared so that you would be comfortable with what you're doing, but leave 2 minutes of your 5-minute time period for questions and answers.
And you often talk faster when you actually get in front of the agent.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I guarantee that they're going to ask you a question that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
They're so good at asking the one
Yes.
question you didn't prepare for.
Yes.
That's
Oh, the
why
gotcha
talking
questions.
to other people is good, because they can ask some of those questions. Like, so why did you do this?
The other thing is, don't go too much into your backstory. Really keep it about your story, the actual plots and characters and things like that. Why you wrote it can be really amazing if it's a memoir. If it's fiction, just stick with your characters. That's what the agent, that's what an editor cares about.
We do not need a case of the plots or backstory.
No, you don't.
Don't-
And you don't have time
Exposition.
for it. That's the problem.
Don't backstory barf all over your agent.
Right.
Don't tell them about what you haven't written. Tell them about what you have.
Yes.
Kind of the same when you're introducing yourself. You keep it pretty specific to
Yes.
what you've written in the genre.
How do you go about that? Because you've mentioned when you first sit down with an agent or publisher to do the pitch, you say, hi, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. And then what? How do you introduce yourself and your book together?
I actually like the idea of you introducing yourself and your book and your genre all at the same time. And I don't mean literally like, hi, my name is Kathleen and this is what I write. I mean it as in like, hi, I'm Brad Cook. I write steampunk. I'm here to talk to you today about The Iron Horseman, which is a 70,000 word young adult novel that I think is really cool. And then I go in to talk about Alexander and how awesome he is and the airships that are there and how his dad was kidnapped and he's running off with the Baron's daughter to go chase them.
So you
And there's
do.
my pitch.
So you do go into some of the logistics of the story itself, like not the
Well, I might
just like the word count
that-
stuff like
that's-
that. Genre.
Yeah,
level.
go give me, and the reason for is that I'm identifying you, and I want to identify you. I want to know what little area to slot you in. So I want to know if we're talking about a nonfiction book or a fiction book. If we're talking about what type of genre we're talking about, and that's all nice up front because then I know exactly what we're talking about. And I don't think you're talking about an urban paranormal that actually ends up being some crazy literary book that is actually nonfiction.
And you've saved the agent a couple questions that they might have asked, so they can ask
Exactly.
deeper questions in the Q&A portion.
Exactly.
Okay. Any final questions or any final statements on pitching?
I want to know about this Mary Poppins meets Doc Savage.
So do I.
Yes.
Maybe I'll write it someday.
I like it.
And when can you get pages on my desk?
Well, not until I finish my work in progress.
Oh, man.
Apparently,
You know
Jen's going
what?
to be opening a literary agency.
But do you know what? That is
So bad at
exactly what you want the agent to say, is what Kathleen just said. So, when am I going to see this? Or tell me more about this.
Having business cards with you. Good idea.
Excellent idea.
Yes.
Very much so.
Should you tailor them to the book you're pitching? And what happens if the agent's like, nah, I don't want that one, but do you have anything else?
Oh, good.
Have
That's another
something
reason.
else.
Something else ready.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
have the something else ready to go.
And that's the other reason to keep it to less time.
Yeah.
So let's say you got a 5-minute pitch. Be prepared after a minute
Yeah.
and then have them say, hey, do you have something else I might be interested in?
I'm not interested in your memoir, but I am interested in this strange Gilligan's Island story you have mentioned.
Yes, there you go, the Dark Gilligan Island.
Yeah, Grimdark.
And on that note, everyone, I want to thank everyone for listening to The Right Pack, and join in next week for yet another interesting topic. The Right Pack would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their bookstore. STL Books and Gifts is St. Louis's newest independent bookstore with an emphasis on fine literature for adults and children and the most comprehensive selection of St. Louis books available anywhere. Visit them online at stlbooks.com or in person at 100 West Jefferson Avenue, Kirkwood, Missouri 63122. Tune in next week as The Right Pack will conquer yet another pondering issue in the writing industry. Theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.